Hello and welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode number 171. My guest in this episode is Valerie Johns, and Valerie is a Los Angeles-based psychotherapist with about 35 years in private practice. She's a poet and a clinically trained dream work practitioner. And in this episode, I talk with Valerie about one of her two publications, this one being titled Night Flights, the Poetry of Soul Retrieval. She also has another book called Ashes in the Milk, and I'll have plenty of links to access her website and perhaps a publish or an outlet for the book, a place where you can pick up the book if you're interested. So very much enjoyed the conversation with Valerie, and I hope you do as well, and I thank you so much for being here. And I'd like to welcome Valerie Johns to the IdeaCast interview series. I'd also like to welcome the YouTube and Spotify audience. I'm looking forward to having a productive and generative conversation with Valerie about a book that she's just published. And I've had the opportunity to read through the book. I will confess I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I have a little bit left to do, but I will also confess that to you, Valerie, that I am a really dry, sterile reader. I read technical things and botany and horticulture and, some of the heady, weird stuff that I have to do for guests. So to read poetry and to read prose and things that are very creative was neat. It was a refreshing immersion, and I just want to thank you for that opportunity. So welcome. I'm glad to have you here as a guest.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I did. I really, as they, it might almost be cliche. You're consuming the book. Yeah. Some books are to be eaten. Some are to be, whatever that phrase is, that quote. But yeah, I really, I got immersed in it. And, as someone who has a very coarse-grained apprehension of Carl Jung, and dreams and the collective unconscious and our daimon and all these things that Jung speaks to, which I very much appreciate. I was able to take that with me on this journey of reading your poetry. And so what I think I'll do for the audience is I will open with a reading of something that stood out to me that would be a nice entree to the conversation. And then I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can explain what we're talking about and your latest creation. And to the audience, the book is called Night Flights and Poetry of Soul Retrieval, right? I always miss the secondary, but Night Flights, Poetry of Soul Retrieval is the title of the book. And that information for purchasing the book will be down in the description field. So on to the quote, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, Valerie. So the quote that stood out to me as a kind of a segue into the conversation, it says, "In the dream time, all parts of me are welcome. Various entities of my soul allow me to visit them. Soul retrieval isn't always about parts lost in trauma. Sometimes sweetness is just lost in the shuffle of living." So Valerie, I thought that might be a neat way to open up and start talking about the book. And as I said, I'm going to hush and have you give us some more revelation about your creation in the book that you're speaking to here.
Thank you. I like that you picked up on that, because yes, dreaming, while I'm a trauma-informed therapist, seeing through that lens of my own history, dreams are for everything. They're just literally postcards that get sent to us every night, recounting how we are, maybe telling us where we're going next that we don't know about yet. Mm-hmm. But most of us have left parts of us behind in order to be loved and accepted in the world. The child's first word is no, because they want to be who they are, not who everybody else wants them to be.
Right.
And so we kind of abdicate parts of ourselves in order to get along in grade school, get along throughout our lives. And in dreams, we're able to visit with and collect the parts of ourselves that we may not have access to. And that carry a lot of energy, not just in what is so popularly called shadow work these days, which is also a very valid thing that we do in dream work, but that there's so many different ways for us to know ourselves that we only see through this little tiny aperture of consciousness. And it's like the top of a pyramid, and this vast underground of who we are is what appears as soon as the ego goes to sleep at night, and the soul begins making movies. And so in the pandemic, when I suddenly had to move over to working virtually with patients, and we were all inside.
Right,
you know,
right.
Inside, I had nowhere to go but further deeply inside myself. And I started taking coursework, advanced psychological coursework in dreaming.
Oh, okay.
And my first book was written from that place of kind of like a poetic memoir of just finding different parts of me and bringing them to the fore. I thought my second book was going to be a young adult novel for coming of age in Tokyo in the 1960s, just a kind of little novel. And I sat down to write it, and my dream ally, Samuel Beckett, showed up and said, "No, you can write that anytime. Go pull out your dream journal and start making poetry out of it. Just bring it forth and see what happens." And so that's what I did for the next couple of years, was I went through about 40,000 words in one document, pulling out one dream after another, and weaving them into the different ages in which I had encountered trauma or grief that had gone unresolved because there was nowhere to put it. You know, like we lived in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. until I was 12. Suddenly we moved to Japan.
Right.
Lost all my friends. There was no internet back then. There were no phone calls to be made long distance. It was like completely cut off and not able to grieve, but to pocket that part of me and carry on. And in the dream time, all those parts were like, I'm here. Come see me. Come hear me. You know, as if I had been kind of blind and deaf to my own inner life. And in the dream time, it's percolating. And when we tune into it, when we put a notebook beside the bed or keep our phone with the notes available, and just when the dream comes, to write it down, even if it's 3 or 4 words that you can pull, then go fishing and pull the whole fish down. It will give you information about yourself and affect, emotions about yourself that you may not have access to during the day.
And that's such a profound virtual, I would call it this is sterile, but a utility, a virtual tool that you can employ with guidance and with a little practice, I think. And that's something I want to, unpack with you as we progress in the conversation. You mentioned that you had a compendium of, was it 35,000 words you said? Was this your dream recordings? This was a life's history of dream recordings.
This was just, I have a document called The Green Book. Carl Jung's was the Red Book, because he wrote in red journals. The leather journal I chose to do my dream work in was green leather. And I began transcribing it into my computer. But it was all handwritten at first. And as I pulled each one out, it truly took a form and had an energy. I probably, when I was done, had over 100,000 words. And I handed it off to a developmental editor. Who I said, just please find the cream. The rises to the top, because I'm lost in the weeds, to mix metaphors. I'm just lost. And I know there's gems in here. And I can't find them because I'm in the mix. And so she sent me back about 40,000 words. Which was genius. And allowed me to then begin to craft it into shaping it into parts that could speak to other people, to ignite something in them. When I've had my advanced copy readers read it, usually the word they use is they've blown their mind. That what they thought about their sleep has been altered into a creativity project. That kicked open a portal or a door that said, welcome. There's the magical mystery tour is coming to take you away.
Yeah.
every night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's deep. It's profound. It's profound because in reading your book, in reading every, and to share with the audience that it's not a contiguous narrative. It's just prose. It's just these vignettes, I would call them myself. Maybe that's not the right, but that there's just these. You have these moments with your dream time and your dream space, and it got me to thinking about my dream time, and I can recall some of the more profound dreams. I've had serial dreams, and one of the dreams I can relate to, and I copied that out as a quote too, but we can get to it if we have time. But it was about flying, and you were talking in one of your vignettes about being a bird, and I was like, oh yes, that's so cool, because I had this serial dream when I was younger, and you just start running, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races, as it were. So I was connecting with you and with your work and your creation through that, and I thought that was really neat. So let's see. So in having started with your initial, I guess, journaling or recording of the dreams, were they written down in with an intention of being poetic, or were they more just sort of propositional and analytic, and like this is just like a stenographer would just sort of record the proceedings, yes, kind of a thing? Yes. Okay, so then it got developed into that. Now, when you handed the 100,000 words, and hats off to editors and developmental editors, they are a special group of people that can read through so much and, like you said, find the cream. And you sat down with those when you generated the 100,000 words. That was when you went through the process of making it poetic. So talk to us about your muse and your space that you were in when you were making this into a poetic journal or diary or recollection of the history of your dream life. What was going on with you when you were doing that?
Well, Carl Jung called it active imagination.
Okay.
My first writing teacher was Jack Grapes, who's now written many books about the method of writing.
Okay.
It's like method acting. He was a method actor who adapted it as a poet.
Okay. Back
in my 20s. I was just a little kid when I worked with him. And he then sent me out to teach the method to children and adults for a number of years.
Okay.
But what it is like one dream I had, and I woke up with only the words red dress, medicine.
Mm-hmm.
There was a woman's voice chanting red dress medicine, until it woke me up, and I was watching a red dress dancing in space without a body inside it.
Okay.
And it was so beautiful. As soon as I woke up, I went to my painting box, pulled out a bright red and a big brush, and I painted the gesture of the red dress. It's on my website.
Okay.
But it's a gorgeous image of just giant sommelier kind of brush strokes. And from there came the poem. When you write a poem, it's usually like you're sitting in a rowboat, you've got a fishing rod, and you're just sitting and you're waiting in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And along comes one line, red dress medicine, you've got a bite.
Yeah.
And then you sit with the bite and you listen for the next line. You don't decide what the next line is going to be.
Uh-huh.
You allow from the unconscious the next line to arise. Okay. If you're really, poet in Latin came from maker.
Mm-hmm.
We are makers.
Oasis. Yeah.
And so we make out of what seems like out of nothing, mm-hmm. but it's not out of nothing. It's from this vast unconscious that, mm-hmm. We don't get to see during the day because the ego is busy driving the car.
Yeah.
But as soon as the ego goes to sleep, there's this incredible art that comes out. So many of my patients who are not think of themselves as creative people have tapped into tremendous creativity within themselves just by telling a dream or two.
Okay.
So the process is this active imagination is, say, like in one dream.
No problem.
In one dream, I was being chased by a wild boar.
Okay.
Down through my parents' backyard, And just as I was about to get in the sliding glass door, a black jaguar came out of my mother's rose garden. So these two massive animals are chasing me, and I slide the door closed, and I wake up going, oh, thank God, they didn't get me. Right. And I immediately go back into the active imagination, and I say now it's not the boar or a wild boar, it's a boar, B-O-A-R. It's just the archetype of the animal. Mm-hmm. And boar is facing me, and I'm behind the glass, and I say, what brings you here? What do you want? And boar, when you stay with it, gestures to the back of my mother's garden, where there was a second rose garden, where we scattered my father's ashes. Mm-hmm. And he says, I come with words from the ancestors, from your father. Mm-hmm. So I listen further, and I see 7 men, my great uncles, who did not escape from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was the only one who made it from the family to America. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting in a circle, and I visit them while I'm awake, and I say, what can I do to heal your pain? Okay. And we're having this conversation, and they say they want me to kill Putin and stop the war in Ukraine. Please just stop. Yeah. Stop war. Yeah. Was basically their message. Mm-hmm. And in my imagination, I pulled out a magic wand, which I happen to have. I've had a magic wand since my very first patients, where whenever I couldn't fix somebody, I go, I have a wand, but it doesn't work. But in the dream time, this threw out a Patronus, like Harry Potter would do, of a great bear, like the California, because I'm from California, the great bear went lumbering across America to head for Russia, or up through Alaska to get to Russia, to go to the Kremlin and stop the war. Okay. And that was the poem. Was just visiting with the ancestors, who had no idea I was going to go visit, except for in another dream, there was a land mover going across my mother's backyard, tearing up the dirt. And I lean out to the guy operating the land mover and say, what are you doing? And he says, I'm here to unearth the secrets of this household.
Oh, okay.
He said, your father, while well-intentioned, did not know how to raise daughters. Let the ancestors out of the ground. So you begin to weave those two dreams together, and you can see how there's an invitation from psyche, from our soul, to say, okay, let me turn and face this. Rather than what the unconscious does is hold it underneath, and the ego's going, I don't want to look. I don't want to look. It's too scary. It's too weird. Too many snakes. Too many monsters. Too many people trying to rape or kill me.
Right.
And so I don't want to see it. But when we turn and we look at it, it doesn't destroy us. It enlivens us and makes us more whole.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. No. It's like you said, soul retrieval. You know, it is consilience. It is reparation, restorative. Yeah. In fact, I've been binging on Kleinian psychology lately with these lectures. And so she's like paranoid schizoid and then depressive, and Carveth says reparative. But I like the neurotic depressive. It's not about depression. It's more that you suddenly feel about another. You feel empathy, real emotive empathy, affective empathy for the other, and that so you're out of that paranoid schizoid where you're more narcissistic and more self-oriented. Sorry, I'm bringing all this Kleinian stuff up, but I'm using another means of connecting with that and saying that, you know, as restoration and repair and healing occurs throughout, you know, the continuity of time to your ancestors, and that's really powerful. And for your own self, that's got to bring something up for you too that will bring you to wholeness, or that's what I'm just sort of intuiting there, is that it affords you that space. It's an affordance.
Exactly.
Wholeness. Yeah. And interesting that the bear was chosen as the figure for retrieval for Russia, because wasn't that during the Soviet Union, the bear was it was the eagle and the bear, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the bear might be going back to restore Russia to where it should be, and open up some healing over there as well, because obviously it's things are not right over there. So that's amazing. That's really neat. Trivial question. Where in DC did you grow up until you were 12?
Silver Spring?
Oh, okay. I was born in PG County, but I lived in Silver Spring from 75 to 83. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful part of DC. And then my dad moved to Bethesda after a while. But yeah, spent part of my childhood in Silver Spring. Beautiful, beautiful. And to go to Japan, my goodness, that's quite the shift.
Yeah, quite the shift. Unmoored.
Yeah.
Unmoored.
Were you comfortable with integrating that very what would feel at that age a very foreign culture? Were you comfortable with assimilating, or did you have to insulate yourself? And this is kind of off track from what we're talking about with your book, but I'm just curious, like, because you're talking about parts, recovery and things like that. So in that shock, like you said, you're cut off completely from the West, from the United States, from DC, and here you are in Japan. So, and it's tough being a foreigner in Japan. So how did you handle that? How did that work out?
Well, the first year I was just with the American Embassy kids.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you were somewhat insulated.
I went to an international school, but I skipped 8th grade while I was there. And in 9th grade, I wound up in high school at 13, way too young to be in high school. I was in high school with older kids, and all we did all year was skip out of school and hang out with rock bands in these massive caverns of like concert halls under the Ginza.
Okay.
There's a whole world under there, as you know from various films you've probably seen, that there's nowhere to build but up and down because it's an island.
Yeah.
And I hung out with Japanese rock bands the second year, which caused my parents to cut the 4-year tour down to 2. Oh. Because they knew that if I turned 16 there, I wasn't coming back.
Okay.
I had fully assimilated into a Japanese rock and roller.
That's wild. Yeah. This was the early 70s, late 60s? Or when was this?
Late 60s.
Late 60s. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen a few like Japanese psych rock references, but my awareness of Japanese music is mostly hard rock from the 80s and into the present day. So I'm not familiar so much with that period. So that must have been really neat. But were they emulating sort of Western what was going on in the West, Europe and America? So they were moving along with that. Yeah. Oh, that must have been. Of course, your parents were upset, but that must have been so special to be part of it.
It was pretty magical. I'm writing a young person's novella now about it, about trying to come of age in a country where you're completely unmoored. And so I attached myself to older kids and just did whatever they did. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like I was like a little empty vessel, and they just poured themselves into me for a year there and changed the course of my life.
Wow.
So again, I had to retrieve me.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you for indulging me that tangent and going to Japan. No, but it can circle around to what we're talking about in these chapters of your life. And sometimes I like messing with young people's heads, and I say, this is a almost 57-year-old body, but there's a 18-year-old, there's a 22-year-old, there's a 6-year-old. They're all there. They're all very much alive, And I don't go so far for and it's a good cliche of the inner child, but like, it's not that inner child is somehow discontinuous with it. I try to impress upon them. It's all continuous. It's all there. It's all happening, because when I kind of clear out whatever filter, you just can't tell what age you are sometimes. Like, your body reminds you, right? Mm-hmm. But you just can't tell what age you are. So to carry that maybe to a coherent point, that when you do these retrievals and when you do this family systems, if you will, kind of work for your parts, all of you, that the more the coherence, the more that oscillatory pattern can be at a frequent, whatever metaphor we're going to say, is in a right relation, so that your 6-year-old and your 18-year-old and your 40 something, whatever, is all sort of finish the sentence for me, like in a good mode of operation, or I don't know what the right way to say that, but I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. But to me, it's like, and there's times where I'll catch myself and I'll just feel so bad for certain ages of me, and it's like, we need to love you. And so anyway, I'll hand that over to you because I'm making a mess of it. But yeah, it just seems like if you can do that work, and get those parts of you, that might be calling out for help, or you may not be aware that they're calling out for help, to get them online.
Anyone can do this. I mean, when I was in the dream course with the founder of Pacific Graduate Institute, we would break down into these dyads. And after I'd met with a bunch of different dreamers, I curated a dream circle of 7 of us. So my partner's in South Africa, in Cape Town. Mm-hmm. There's someone in Italy, someone in Great Britain, Canada, Texas, and Whidbey Island, and me. Wow. And we meet every other week, and we take turns tending one another's dreams for 4 years now. And there's something about just having other people hear your dream and then say, wow, if that were my dream, here's what I would think it would mean, but I'm not telling you what it would mean if it's yours. Right. Or asking questions like, what stands out most in the dream? Or when you're telling the dream, where do you feel it in your body? Mm-hmm. Or tell me more about this part of the dream, or that part. Because certain things in the telling, especially if you tell it 2 or 3 times, and if you do make it into a poem or story, certain elements will stand out, and each one can be tended like wild boar. Okay. Right? Right. Yeah. Right. No, that perspectival and participatory sharing opens avenues for you, I guess, in terms of lensing what you would interpret from your historicity and your experience and all of that. So yeah, group. In fact, I think I did watch a couple of interviews that you had done, and there was a gal, and forgive me, I don't remember her name, but she was a women's coach, and you all had a wonderful conversation. And you had mentioned that with this book that you might have a companion guidebook, or a guidebook for women's circling and groups to talk, because one thing I'll share with the audience is that there's something there for everyone in your work in this book that they can relate to. You won't get through reading your book without like I said, with the flying, and there were other things that I was catching too. But I noticed as somebody who could identify as a man, I suppose, just like identifying things that have happened to women and things that women can immediately connect with and immediately relate with. And I'm married to a woman, so for almost 30 years, so yeah, sort of I can empathize and connect with that. So I would say that to the audience, that there is a lot that you can relate to, and it might open things up for you. It might really, we have all these trigger warnings in the world, but some triggers are good, and they'll just, boom, something, a salience thing will light up, and you'll break a frame, and you'll be like, oh. So there's that. Yeah, take that, audience. There's that for you if you night flights. Sorry, I'm being a little silly, but yeah, no, I think that's something that I would feel good speaking to, is that something like this is again, I love the word utility for me. It's we have our virtual toolbox in life, and working with therapists, they give you wonderful tools, wonderful virtual machinery that helps you work forward and into your history and work backwards. But yeah, to the group though, is that something you think you're going to go ahead and set up, so that if there are reading groups or circling for, it doesn't just have to be women, it could be any gender, but just that might be a companion in the future? Well, we've talked about it. I'm loath to be branded. That metaphor goes back to cattle getting, seared into their skin,
slaves and
for
cattle,
who they belong to. And I've worked with branding companies, and I don't like the feeling of pitching dreams. Oh, okay. It's got to be an attraction rather than a promotion. Mm-hmm. It has to be this is magic. Mm-hmm. I want to know more about it, rather than, hey, let's do a 90-second Instagram and TikTok therapy. I can't. That's not my jam. I've been a therapist for 36 years. Mm-hmm. There's no way that I could I don't know, capitalize on this in a way that didn't feel completely authentic.
Yeah.
So when I think about doing dream circles, that means more work for me. That means me teaching people more stuff or writing the self-help book. I'd rather just say, go find some friends.
Right.
You know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need me to tell you how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just go and the dreams will tell you.
Right, right. Okay. So probably not going to have a companion.
Maybe not. I mean, I think there's something up on the website that says, here's how you can do this.
Okay.
But it's not going to be, it's not going to be a big part of my wheelhouse.
Okay.
I don't see it. Maybe I'm small-minded about it. Maybe I'm playing it small and I should play it bigger. But I just kind of trust that this niche doesn't need to be so niche.
No. And I fully agree. And I guess the way you just, read that back to me, I agree 100%. It brings the inner Marxist in me out. And it's like, don't commodify people. Don't commodify their dreams. Don't cheesy it up. Like you said, don't TikTok it. Don't Instagram it. And maybe we're showing our age, but you know what? Slow is the way. But no, what I was thinking, what I was imagineering on that was more like a meta, overarching kind of meta guide that could be a reference to reference that might be assisting in interpretation of icons and symbols and things, but there's plenty of that in the world. It's not like you need to do that, but like maybe just a resource directory, but somebody else can do that and use your book as a reference. So, but wouldn't it be nice to imagine that there are going to be groups of women that or persons, I should say, that get together and can circle with this book, because circling, or group chat, group therapy, whatever it is, I think this has a lot of value in that sense. And again, not to capitalize it. But,
no, I appreciate what you're saying. I do.
Human value, not not market and enterprise value. Yeah. So I agree with you 100%. You don't want to cheapen it by making it slick and branded, like you said, which again brings out the angry Marxist in me. So because I don't like that either. In fact, that's why when I do interviews, there's people that want to do the thing where you give them money and stuff on YouTube and things like that. This is always going to be something I do as a volunteer project, right? It's a tiny little thing in the world, but I would never want to do commercials. I'd never want to make a dime from this, just because it's far too valuable to pollute it with money and transactional things like that. So, all right, tangent, sorry. So what I'd like to do maybe is expand out and then ask some questions about what people can do for themselves as preparatory, or again, sort of a meta overarching capacity to enter into the work that you've done. But before we do that, is there anything that you would want to say or bring out with regard to the book? We're not closing the book. We're not walking away from it. But just for now, is there anything else that we can bring to the fore before we move on and start orbiting around the book?
Well, I think the thing that is most important for people to begin to embrace is that within the dream time, there's like a personal thing about our own lives, and there's a collective thing, which is something we all share. And when you tap into it, it's shockingly powerful and brings synchronicity into view, where things are suddenly in sync and you have something in common with other people that you didn't know you had. When I had the red dress medicine dream, I shared it with a cohort of people who were studying dreams. 2 other people said that they had dreams of the red dress dancing. And one of the mentors in the group brought her painting of a red dress that she had when she was at the stage of dream development that I was in.
Oh, wow. Neat.
It was a different dress, but it was the same empty dress.
Yeah.
And when I shared that, another woman said that for her graduate school thesis, she had written about a Canadian indigenous artist named, I think her name was Jamie Black, with the Métis tribe, who had, back in the early 2000s, had hung empty red dresses by hangers from trees in forests and by roadsides. Each one memorializing a missing or murdered Indigenous woman, of which there are many that go missing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about this project.
Okay.
I didn't know about the empty red dress and the Métis tribe. I'd never heard of the Métis tribe. And when I shared it with a friend who's a Jungian, she said, Métis is M-E-T-I-S. I said, yes. She said, in English, that's Metis. And Metis was the goddess who, with Zeus, procreated to make Athena.
Okay.
The goddess that came out of Zeus's head gave him such a headache that he finally popped her out, and she came out fully formed in warrior garb.
Uh-huh.
And so it taps into this mythological, imaginal, universal, from the ancient Greeks to my bedroom, to the Métis tribe in Canada, to these other dreamers who are in other parts of the country who had the same red dress-ish dream. And then you begin to go, oh, well, maybe there's even greater meaning here that I'm barely tapping the surface of it because it's so vast. Yeah.
And we have a long, long history as humans and beyond with the color red as something that is part of us as it's a signifier. Yeah. And, we could get kind of sterile and talk about, primal attraction and things like that. But I mean, it goes back with our lineage for so long and so deep, whatever color psychology would say about that. But yeah, it's a profound color. And I watched that one interview that you had done with that gal, and that came up, and I was like, wow, that's really, and what you just said, it's very powerful. And so this could be a segue or a prompt to talk about someone who's listening, somebody who's watching, and they have dreams. Obviously, they could grab a journal and start writing the dreams down. But what I might ask of you as a therapist, as a clinician that's had years and years of experience, where does one start in terms of comporting themselves as dream journalers and then maybe being as a curator of the dream collections and journals? What would you suggest that could be a means of salience mapping? Like, what symbolic, and of course we could refer to Jung and have them start becoming a Jungian, not a scholar, but, just a little read up on Jung.
Yes. It's a good question. What I tell people is just before you go to sleep at night, put a notepad with a Sharpie, because if you write with a pencil or pen, it's not going to be legible in the morning. So you get a thick magic marker.
Okay.
So you can just write and scrawl in the dark a message from the dream. It's like, last night there was a man chasing me who turned into a woman who was, she had a fire hose, like one of those hoses that can like knock you off your feet.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm screaming at her, Nancy, no. And I think I have a friend named Nancy. I hope she's okay.
Uh-huh.
Right? So, but I mean, I don't usually wake up from nightmares these days because I'm pretty synthesized.
Okay.
But it was there. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote it down. I did not want to wake up. But Rumi wrote a poem, and one of the lines in the poem was, don't go back to sleep. When a dream wakes you up, do something. It's a call. The call's gone out that says, hey, this is important. Write it down. And you write it down, and then you go back and visit it. Mm-hmm. And you make it into like a short story. You give it a title, and you tell it in the present tense, always in the present tense, because the now is the only place where dreams live. Mm-hmm. Like right now, I'm getting ready to give a poetry reading at the end of the month, my first in decades.
Okay.
And so I'm pulling 25, 30 minutes of poems together to encapsulate the idea of soul retrieval.
Okay.
And it's been a challenge because I keep going, oh, not this one, not that one. And it's parsing it and pulling it together. And, of course, editing, because poems are never finished. They're just handed over in desperation. But you always want to bring them back and re-edit them. And have them just write a story.
Okay.
About, once upon a time, I was this. And then choose an element from the dream and maybe go to YouTube and play the sound of water. The sound of water going over rocks. There's a teacher named Robert Moss who has people either listen to shamanic drumming, which you can find anywhere on Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. And listen to the drumming for just a minute or two and walk yourself back into the dream and ask that figure, whether it's Samuel Beckett standing by the ocean ready to part the wave for me, or if it's Samuel Beckett showing up as a vagabond in an old lady's apartment to show me a magical ring that has a red swirl in it and says, follow the swirl. Follow. Where does it go? Right? And to just have a relationship between awake ego and soul, psyche, so that they're not divorced from one another. This is my night self, this is my day self, but that you're in the alchemy of things meeting up and heating up and seeing what comes forth. You're asking, who are you? Why are you here? I'm working on one poem where I was walking through a garden full of dead snakes. They were frozen in all these different pieces. And suddenly I realized there's one live snake in the group and it's going to bite me. And in the dream, I'm telling myself never kick a snake. And I kick it anyway. I know I shouldn't kick it in my waking life. And in my dream life, I kick it and it bites me. And when I go back in, I say, what's going on here? And it says I carry medicine. Snake bite in homeopathic terms is lachesis. It's the synthesized venom made into something that can heal you. Okay, so the idea that the snake always in dreams is one of the most significant dream figures. It comes carrying medicine for you. And when it bites you, it's trying to inoculate you or wake you up to something that you're not looking at. And so you just kind of hold the empty space of like, what would you have me see? And let your imagination dream it while you're awake. And it will make movies for you. Jung called it active imagination. Where you imagine yourself back into the dream. The podcast that talks the most to this is called This Jungian Life. It's 3 Jungian analysts. They've been on for about 6 years. They have a dream school. They're lovely, really smart people. Really smart people. And I admire their work, and I don't need to go and do their job. That's what it feels like if I were to go and, they wanted me to do a podcast, this branding thing. It was like, they're already doing a brilliant podcast. Why would I want to? I bow to them. They're doing a magnificent job. I'm going to stay back and write books because that's what I'm best at. And telling the stories about the books. That's also a joy. It's really fun. I learn more about me every time I tell these stories. Like, every time I read it into Zoom and put it onto Substack for the clips to come out, I go, those are the clips they chose. AI went in and went, I like this. And I'm like, you like that? That part hadn't even come across my radar as intensely as this other part. So then I'm having a relationship with artificial intelligence now saying, well, what do you see? Like another developmental editor might. Just what would you see? Not to tell me who I am, but what would you see? So engaging with it. And there are apps now that interpret dreams. I wouldn't per se use one. Because I think we have the knowledge and the wisdom right here. We don't need to be told this is what that represents. Because it means, what does it represent to you? And what does it become? There's this Buddhist practice called the Chod, C-H-O-D. Developed hundreds of years ago by a female lama that, where you take the wounded part of you and you ask it what it needs. And then whatever it needs, you turn yourself into a nectar or a tea made of that, and you let the part drink as much as it needs of you. So I did this active imagination with my hungry self, because I have an infant who got badly hurt at the age of 6 weeks when my dad spilled ashes in the only milk in the house when my mom was sick. And there was no milk for me to come from her anymore. And the only milk in the house had cigarette ashes in it.
Oh.
So I froze in a hunger storm. That's what made me a poet, though.
Yeah.
Was trying to find words for a pre-verbal self that had no words. So it's not so much a curse as it was just my story.
Yeah.
But when I go back and retrieve those things, they have this incredible, rich meaning to them that allow me to go back and find that baby and dream her forward, you know, in a way that and Klein is great for that because she talks about the good breast and the bad breast. Yeah. I had a great breast for 6 weeks, and then that breast got sick. And I was 50 years old before I told my mom, I gave you that breast infection. And she was like, no, sweetie, babies don't make mothers sick. Babies are pure. I got a breast infection.
That's splitting too.
It was, and it was amazing to be able to say, thank you, Mom.
Right.
You know, and for her to then tell me more about what happened that night.
Okay.
That helped me and retrieve enough of the paradigm to go in. And when I went into the chart, I pictured a hungry self that looked like Jabba the Hutt. You know Jabba the Hutt from Star?
Yeah.
The biggest, fattest, ugliest thing. That's my inner self.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And I say to Jabba, what do you need, Jabba? And Jabba says, I want to feel safe. I want to feel safe enough that I'm not hungry. And so I turned myself into this nectar of safety, and Jabba drank and drank and drank. And you know, she turned into a little blue parakeet.
That's quite a transmutation.
I only eat what I need. Birds only eat what they need.
Yeah.
6 weeks earlier, I'd had a dream that I was straightening a man's lapel of his coat before he was going out the door. And in his lapel was a little blue bird. So, I mean, you can't make that up.
No.
You can't make that up. That's the psyche making these beautiful movies about who you are and how you can mend your soul. That's so therapeutic, and you don't necessarily need a therapist to guide you there. It helps to have a psychopomp, as it's called, somebody who grounds you so that you don't untether too far out into the dreamland.
Right.
But a circle can do that, a circle of peers, of friends.
Yeah, support.
Like a book club. A book club for dreams.
Yeah. Like you had others interpreting some of what you presented, and that was helpful. And you said that was a Guardia Pacifica group that was talking? Was that what you were saying?
It was the Pacific Graduate Institute.
Pacifica. Okay.
In Santa Barbara. Stephen Eisenstadt founded Pacifica, and he is Jungian oriented, and the school used to be Jungian oriented. It's just changed hands and is, I believe, owned now by a Christian group that's doing a new school sort of revamp of it, from what I've heard. I don't know any of the details.
Okay.
But Eisenstadt is no longer the king of it, or the daddy of it. But he was my teacher, and who gave me wonderful tending of a few dreams when we were working together. Okay.
Yeah. I have a book back there, Jung's Global Vision, I think, from Pacifica, and Campbell might have been the author. I know, what's his face did the foreword, Ken Wilber, Spiral Dynamic guy, did the foreword. It's a really neat book. But it was, I want to say, it might not have been Campbell, but anyway, somebody from Pacifica wrote it, and it was published in their house. So that's interesting that they changed hands. Let's hope they keep doing good work, keeping up the tradition. What was I going to say? I was going to riff a little bit on where you've been in the last few minutes, and that. So if there's somebody in the audience that's listening to this, and they're more, I hate to be cheesy, but right-brained and cynical and it's like this can be cultivated, I think, because I can oscillate between hard-headedness and heart open and stuff like that. And I would say to someone who might be curious, but also feeling restricted, is that, the imagination is the most powerful thing you have. And the imagination is nothing to joke about. It is a powerful psychotechnology. It is a powerful tool. I use these hard words, but it conveys the power that it has, I think. And so if you can, as you've been saying in this conversation, develop with the power of your imagination, with the power of curiosity, the capacity to imagine yourself being a good dreamer, imagine yourself being a good retention agent of these dreams, that you can cultivate and develop this. And I'm saying that to myself too, because I dream a lot. And usually I'm indifferent. I just, oh, that was interesting when I wake up, because they're usually very banal. They're not anything terribly profound. But anyway, I just want to say that to anybody that's listening, that if they're like, well, it's easy for her, or it's easy to say and da 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 da. But no, it can be done. We all have access to it, I think.
Yes.
So.
Yes, psyche is an equal opportunity for everyone.
There you go.
Everyone has an equal opportunity to access magic and healing, profound healing. And the ancient Greeks used to go into the medicine circle, the Asclepian healers. But the first thing they were told to do was they go into a dream, and then they bring the dream to the medicine guy. That the dream was part of the medicine, all the way back to the Greeks. Okay. It is real medicine that's in there. They knew it, and they weren't dumb. They were incredibly creative. No, the psyche is the pharmacopoeia, right? It is the progenitor. All you have to do is look at neuroscience and how we downregulate all our neurochemistry, all of that, right? So they were onto that. Well, in their language and their perspective and their way of knowing, and not to keep injecting my own thoughts too much here, but one thing I would also say for anyone out there, one thing I do in the evening to get myself to fall asleep, but also it's an imaginative practice, and I don't do this every night, but I imagine myself building an orchard, but I love plants, so you can do other things, but I build an orchard, and so it's in the mid-Atlantic, maybe Virginia. I live in Florida now, so I can grow a lot of things. But in the mid-Atlantic, you can grow apples and peaches and persimmons and pawpaws and all these other things. And then I have tropical plants that I grow there under greenhouses. And so there's all this designing and engineering, but you're basically bringing things to fruition. You're cultivating these plants to bear fruit for you. And so those are my images, and that's my intention when I go to sleep almost every night, as I just work on my orchard. And it puts me to sleep, but I think it also is fertile ground, so to speak, for what may come in dreamtime and dreamscape. So anyway, if that's a hack that somebody can use, build a shed, paint a painting, or go for a walk in the forest. These are all little things, especially if you're, because I'm a light sleeper, so I can be up and down, but that usually knocks me right out. Yeah. And maybe it prompts me to have some productive dreaming, maybe. Yeah, and never underestimate the ego's resistance. If you're listening and you're skeptical, just know that the ego, it thinks it's a freedom fighter. It thinks it's the one driving this show, and it really is a pipsqueak compared to the psyche. But once it's absolutely contained and made right-sized, where it's not arrogant or overly skeptical, but it's been humbled, right. Psyche and ego work beautifully together. Yeah. It's not like there's one against the other. So many of us are in conflict with ourselves rather than being existentially welcoming of our full self. Knowing that ego is going to say, go back to sleep. It's just a weird dream. That lady's crazy. Don't bother. Every morning I say to my husband, I had an amazing dream. And he says, of course you did.
Yeah, right. Why wouldn't you?
Because he's more of the neuropsychiatric guy. And so it's like, dreams are chemicals or they're whatever they are. And I'm coming from that more Jungian collective unconscious place. But everybody is welcome in the dream time. Nobody's excluded because everybody dreams. And psyche doesn't waste our time.
Well said. Well said. Earlier you mentioned nightmares, and if someone out there is beset with maybe serial nightmares and struggling in that regard, do you have advice that you can give, as just on a podcast, that somewhere that they can start to get attention to that, or is there a remediation course necessary, or is there just what would one do if if they're getting tired of having, you know, a serial episodes, or even just the one-off that's just really, really upsetting, and they carry it with them.
Well, the reason we get a nightmare is because it really needs our attention.
Okay.
So I take nightmares more seriously than just about anything else.
Okay.
And I've had many. And the thing is to know that they're shadow, and ego doesn't want to see them. And while we're awake, if we can call upon what we call companions or allies, friendly things that we've met in a dream or in our imagination, childhood teddy bears, a companion dog or animal, horse, a little monkey, whatever it may be. I've had patients that have all different kinds of allies that they bring in to the active imagination to stand beside them, to hold them safely. And then they bring the nightmare up by listening to drumming or water or whatever, and bring that nightmare person, like Nancy with the scary hose last night, and say, "What's up, Nance?" But I'm safe because I'm awake. She can't hurt me now. She's not really here in front of me. I'm not psychotic. Yeah. But I can say, "What's up? What's up, Nance? What are you coming to me for? What do you have to say?" Sometimes I'll have people do it with the dominant and non-dominant handwriting. I'm a lefty. So with my right hand, I would write, "I come in service. I come to let you know that the hose is kinked up, and you need to unkink it in order to let something flow that's not flowing right now." Might that be your heart? Could it be something in your body? Could it be something on your wish list of things that you haven't taken care of that's unlived as of yet? But it's coming, going knock, 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 knock. Hey, wake up, write it down, come back and visit me, and let me tell you why I visited. That's all a nightmare is. It's just when you hear that knock on the door that's like, whoa, there's something scary out there. Right? And to welcome it, I mean, there's all these thought leaders now on TikTok about shadow work. But shadow work is not to be taken lightly. You know, even Carl Jung said that you can't resolve it with a clever trick. Yeah. You can't go, "Oh yeah, I've got darkness in me." It is abysmal. It is terrifying. And when it shows up in the middle of the night, it looks like one of those soul eaters out of Harry Potter. Yeah. And it's you're going to be evaporated into it and completely destroyed. But if you understand that shadow is just creative energy of all the things that we have rejected in our life because mom or dad or society or school teacher, friend did not approve of. And so we shoved it away into a box and locked it. And now by the time we're adults and we're ready to evolve, there's this horrifying box in the closet, and it's like the telltale heart out of Edgar Allan Poe, right? Okay. And it's thumping away in there, and it's going to send you nightmares. But when you open it and you just say, "Welcome," whatever you've got to be. Robert Bly wrote the most beautiful essay probably 30, 40 years ago about meeting the shadow. He said, and I'll end with this, he said, "When we are born, we are like globes of light. And the minute something bad happens or shameful happens when we're 2, 3 years old, part of our light is broken off and shoved in a bag. Yeah. Okay. And then we get caught with our hand in the cookie jar, or a friend molests us as kids, or there's a sex game down the street and we want to be loved by everybody. We go and play it and then we hate ourselves. Another chunk of our light is taken away. We fall off our bike and break our leg, and everybody goes, "Oh, you'll be fine." And we need to grieve the loss of our athleticism in the bag. And when we get to therapy or recovery or dream work, we open the bag and we bring out these broken shards and we clean them off and we say, "Who are you? What happened?" And by the time we're done with those nightmares, we are a globe of light, buddy. We are a globe of light again, and no one can steal that light from you. Right. Because it's who you were born to be before all the detours that society made you take. Yeah. Yeah. Or mom getting sick, or dad going crazy, or drinking too much. Yeah. Whatever it is, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Yeah. And I like and I don't know a lot about Jung, although I have a couple of his books, secondary books, and his interpretation of the myth of Eden and the fall of man, and what you describe in the pre-personal, and then the entree into the becoming the personal, and so around the Lacanian mirror stage or whatever it is, when you start becoming an aware human, that we go through our own Edenic kind of cycle, and that's the fall, and that's the shadow, and that's the sin, if you want to call it, privation that can occur, like, again, molestation or weird sex rituals that 6-year-olds, and, a lot of us did that. And so, and then you have to spend the rest of your life, navigating that while still piling on all the existential horror that life can provide. So,
right.
That's a heavy task. And so, like you said, to TikTok it or Instagram it and say, here's a hack, 90 seconds, you can get rid of the shadow, and it's like, really? I don't want to get rid of the shadow. In fact, I joke that I've learned to get along with my demons, and my demons, they work for me sometimes, and they mess me up sometimes, but, we're in this kind of accord right now. And that's my metaphor. That's my little way, my Irish humor for dealing with that. In fact, you mentioned in Dreamtime that the shadow can show up. And again, I'm sorry to keep talking about myself, but like 3 or 4 times in my life, I've had those terror dreams where I go into a wooded space and death is there, and it's like you're dead and alive and you're rotting, and the black horror, that the terror that shows up for you, and that, and I find it fascinating. Like, this sounds sick and almost masochistic, but I would experience that again, as horrifying as it is, but it's fascinating just the same, to go through that. So, but like you said, it's a calling card. It's like, hey, open the bag, like you said just a moment ago. And I think that's so beautiful and so powerful, the way you put, and that's proper individuation, right? If I'm speaking a little Jungian, is when you're that ball of light that Jung's talking about, not just individuating as that pre-personal to personal past the mirror stage, that you are individuated in a comprehensive, coherent, healed, whole, all parts working as they should kind of way to do it.
Exactly. In full adult development with nothing arrested. Yeah. Wow. It sounds like big mountain to climb, but really that's the beauty of life, I think, right? When you start to, and you mentioned Buddhism a little while ago. Well, the Eightfold Path is one wonderful way, among many. You could go the Christian route and surrender yourself to that which is the love of Jesus, or, all sorts of ways that we develop for ourselves to aid us in that, right? In that individuation process and the healing process. Yes. And they all have to do with surrender.
Yeah. And that's where the ego can learn to dance with the psyche, with the soul.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And to bring our other friend, Freud in, like the super ego is the adjudicator, it's the inquisitor, and that can also be shadowy, but it can be in relation, to the ego and the psyche. So there's and that's what I love about us as symbolic creatures. There's so many ways and so many options on the menu to heal your soul and to bring you into wholeness, or into the glowing ball of light that you described, which I think is a beautiful way to start to wrap this exploration of dreams and soul retrieval. And I'll share one little anecdote with you. And again, this isn't about me necessarily, but it's about things that happen. When I was 13, I moved into a house that had the reputation of being the horror house of this community in rural Virginia. My mom took me out of the city because I was, much like you going to the rock and roll, I was turning into a miscreant. So she brought me into rural Virginia thinking that would, a bucolic, safe. No, there were more drugs there. Everybody's growing dope. So I'd start growing dope at 13, whatever. But anyway, we're in this haunted house. And I find out the night that we move in that a woman had been murdered in the house. And the guy that sold the house, his wife went insane. And sorry for anybody that's sensitive, but she slit her wrist, tried to commit suicide. There's just a house of horrors. And I'm moving in there at 13 and I'm like, holy shit. What am I in for? So there begins this kind of fracturing, this kind of imposition of horror onto this 13-year-old. And I lived with that house for about 2 or 3 years. Very little in the way of malevolence. There were incidents, there were things that happened, but very little. Mostly just me, living in fear of what might happen. But when I left the house, when I became an adult and moved off into the world, came down to Florida, I had serial dreams of that ghost for 25 years. And it was the same thing once or twice a month. And I would go into a house and that presence was there. And it was mad because it had been murdered. Her name was Elizabeth. I looked her name up and I came to know her. But I got tired of it after about 25 years. It would just come up and I'm like, whatever, it's another nightmare. I had a conversation with her and I said, listen, I called her Mrs. Randolph because that was her proper name. And I said, I love you. I've lived with you for so long. I said, but I understand that this is not the healthiest way for you to be. And I understand your position, but I want to offer anything I can symbolically to help you let go of us and let go perhaps of whatever it is that's keeping you, appointed to this station. And I did this kind of poetic gesturing and loving outreach, and they stopped. Now, whether that was me just cleansing my own palate, or there may have been some attachment, I'm agnostic. I love ghosts, so I'm agnostic, but again, it's speculative. But what a beautiful experience. And then they never came back. I have little flickers from time to time, but they were very ugly, very upsetting, like twice a month or whatever, and they just went away. And I know it wasn't her just being mean to me. It was just the recreation of the horror of being murdered by your husband or whatever the story is. So anyway, I wanted to share that as a serial dream that was fascinating. Because like I said, I'm okay with nightmares. I don't get them anymore, but when I would, it's okay, because like you said, there's something there. There's something to teach you something. So anyway, thought I'd share that one.
Lovely. Mrs.
Randolph hopefully is a little more at peace for having attached or whatever. Yes. Yeah. In fact, when the internet came around and I looked her up, when the access was there, that she had given birth in January of 1857 and died at the age of 22 in August of 1857. So she was murdered, and it could have all been an urban legend. I don't know, but if she had been murdered, she was murdered young and as a young mother with a 7, 8, 9 month-old child. I'm like, wow, I hope this is all just an urban legend and it was all a confabulation or artifice, of lore and things like that. But it was so powerful regardless of what it is. So anyway, I just thought I'd share a ghost story with you. Valerie, let's, before we say goodbye, is there anything that you would like to bring into the conversation that you think might help? You said such a wonderful thing about the glowing and all of that, but is there anything else that you want to include in this conversation before we wrap it up?
Just remember your dreams. Show a little respect. Let them touch in on you. It's radical trust. We're always developing, and yet people think they get to a certain point in life and they've arrived and they're finished developing. And it's not true. We are individuating and developing until they put us in the ground or send us up the smokestack. And to try not to impede that growth, but partner up with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for writing the book and bringing that into fruition, because much like this conversation, anything I think we do that radiates out into the interconnected world, when it's done in a pro-social, positively valent, positively affective way, wow, that's to me is sacred. That is the sacred showing up for us. So thank you for that. I want to thank you. So. To the YouTube and Spotify audience, I hope this was a good conversation for you. Again, all relevant contact information to access not only the book that we've discussed here, but Ashes in the Milk was a book that you had published, and you had referenced that a little while ago. And so I want to have all of those links down available to the audience. So thank you. Valerie, I'll say goodbye to you when we stop record, but to everyone in the audience, thank you all so very much for your time, and take care.